And who is this little birdie making a mess of Biddy's nest? And why is Biddy herself doing some heavy breathing in the early hours of the morning? All this and more in this episode of the 2022 nesting season. And yes indeed, welcome back to the 2022 nesting season. In this episode we're covering the 15th and the 16th of April. We saw sleepy Biddy start her day at 10 to 6 on the 15th. And indeed, as you saw at the start of the video, there's a lot to cover in this video. Indeed, so much went on, I might even have to include some of it in the next video. But with all that to come, we are starting the nest activity at 9:30 on the 15th, and there is a Bluetit arriving at the nest box. And yes, you have guessed it, this is in fact not Biddy or Miley. You can see that it's a different Bluetit straight away from the complexion of the bird. And I believe this to be the male of the rival pair. You can see the female at the hole with the male trying to coax her into this nest, in hopes that she would begin nesting in this nesting site. And indeed, we know, but also I do believe they know that this nest is taken. So why the interest from the rival pair? They know they would have to fight for this nest in order to rear some young in it. So this would also point to that there is a lack of nesting sites in this area, or suitable nesting sites at that. But thankfully, Biddy is back at 9:45, bringing in a beautiful feather to line her nest with. And now that her nest is complete, she is spending less time around the nest box, and this is given an opening for the rival pair to be a little bit more brave in their advances and interest towards this nest box. So we're going to see how the lack of presence by Biddy and Miley really play into how the rival pair start showing more interest in it. And here we can see Biddy just having a little bit of a rest, and thankfully on the 15th, however, she did spend a nice amount of time around the nest, which really gave the rival pair probably not really a chance to get in and have a nosy at the nest. So you can see the time is starting to speed up here, and Biddy really was just spending a lot of time in the nest, fixing feathers, rearranging them, bit of nesting shuffles here and there of course. But I also wanted to show you this behaviour. Just look at her kicking back material and feathers as she leaves the nest. This is behaviour that we'd be more likely to see when there's eggs in the nest, and it tends to start a day or two before nesting, or egg laying should I say, begins. So it's a good promise of things to come. And they also, around this time when eggs are being laid and are about to be laid and the nest is complete, as I mentioned, start spending a little bit more time away from the nest. And we're going to see that playing in the next day on the 16th, that's coming up in a few minutes, that the rival pair really take advantage of this and really start trying to move in. So we can see we're coming to the end of the day on the 15th, and Biddy comes in and spends the night. I was really hoping for some eggs during the night, but as we'll see, I don't see anything being laid the following morning. Now, I have to say that is no guarantee that there's no eggs in the nest. I just didn't see any sure signs of some eggs being laid. So there could be eggs in there, but I don't think there is at this stage. And we see Biddy doing this behaviour quite a bit as well. She hears something outside, and I do believe this is the rival pair's calls, because I was watching the nest on occasion, and she would do this when the rival pair maybe was close to the nest. So this is her coming up to the nesting hole and just standing guard and making sure no other bird or no other pair of Bluetits will come in. And so the rival pair don't seem to get too close to the nest, and on this occasion, as her wings stayed quite tucked into her body. If those rival pair was trying to get into the nest box here, she would be flaring those wings like we have seen in the past. In any altercation with Bluetits, that's how they threaten to make themselves look as big as possible with those wings to try to scare anything away. And so Biddy stays away from the nest quite a bit, popping in every couple of hours or so, not really building the nest so much as just keeping tabs on it now, as the nest is complete. But we'll see at noon on the 16th that the rival pair arrive again. And so the male of the pair comes in and coaxes his female in. We see they get along a lot better in the nest. She doesn't scream at him to leave like Biddy did to Miley, the poor chap. But these two are very interested in this nest, and this is the sort of behaviour we have been seeing in the past. Them hopping in, taking a look, taking a good look around, and then leaving. And indeed that is how it played out, although the frequency of their visits really ramped up. We can see I've sped it up here that the rival pair popped in 3 to 4 to 5 times throughout the day, up until Biddy arrived with a nice feather at around 22 minutes past 12, none the wiser that her nest is being invaded by a pair of other Bluetits. And we see Biddy here doing her about to laying eggs nesting behaviour, where she's trying to push that material back on the eggs. And then look, Biddy and Miley have been away from the nest for the guts of 3 hours now, and the rival pair have tried to move in again. So the male pops in and there's the female followed. But just look how this plays out. This female doesn't seem to be just sitting idly by and looking around anymore. She is taking a lot more interest in this nest cup, and indeed has started doing nesting shuffles. And we really begin to see nesting behaviour from this rival pair in Biddy's nest. So it's anyone's guess how this will all play out. Now, of course, if you've looked at the live stream, you might have a few guesses. But at this stage, I remember watching it, I was none the wiser on how this whole altercation between the two rival pairs will play out. And it's funny how nesting shuffles seem to differ. The rival female, anytime she does a nesting shuffle in Biddy's nest, really seems to leave it in quite a bit of a mess. And we're going to see this exaggerated through the coming days. And here we see them back again at 2:45. And again the same behaviour again. Starting to do nesting shuffle, really moving around the feathers, and really properly getting interested in this nest. So I'm hoping at this stage that there are no eggs in there. While this female I don't think would break the eggs intentionally, she certainly is not going to have any love for the eggs or any motherly care towards them. They're not her eggs. But thankfully I don't believe there's eggs in that nest just yet. So I think we're doing good at the moment. We can see the male keeping tabs on his female in the nest there. He pops his head in every so often and reassures her that the coast is clear, as I am fully sure that they know that there is competition for this nest. I will say this much though, they are a lovely pair of Bluetits. Both have beautiful complexions and they just look like very robust little birds. And if I'm not mistaken, I really do believe they look a little bit bigger than Biddy and Miley, so they do look like just a bigger built bird for some reason or another. It would be minuscule in the difference, but if they were to fight, I believe the new pair would probably win. Biddy and Miley seem to be a little bit of a smaller build. And we can see this rival female is really doing a piece of work on Biddy's nest. She's really fluffing up everything and pushing up everything against the walls. And if I was to guess, and it is only a guess, I believe this is Mindy and Mork from last year that nested in another nest box that I have in the garden. And unfortunately that nest box was retired as it was quite worn at that stage, and rot was starting to set in. And all my other nest boxes have moved out to my new home. So really, there is only one nest box in my parents' garden at the moment. And unfortunately on the 16th of April, I'm away down studying in Galway, so I cannot or couldn't do too much for these birds at the time. And with that all being said, just look at the state of Biddy's nest. It has been ransacked by the female bird. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these altercations between the two pairs continue to play out. I'm not home in this timeline for another week or two at this stage, so I can't do anything about it till then. So we're going to have 5 to 7 days of Mindy and Mork, that we're going to call these birds, trying to move in on Biddy and Miley's space. And I've sped up some of these videos as she really kept coming back and messing up this nest. You can see the difference between her and Biddy, as her face is a lot smoother than Biddy. Biddy has that rough face, and Mindy seems to have that quite smooth complexion and looks like just a slightly bigger bird. But you can really see the interest in this nest really ramped up on the 16th. And I do believe if Biddy or Miley happen to come back during these visits, a fight or some sort of disagreement certainly would have played out. Blue tits and indeed grey tits do not take kindly for other birds being in their nest. So on one hand, I'm very glad Biddy and Miley happened to stay away, and indeed they did stay away all day, and give this rival pair a full day to really check out this nest box and really start making themselves at home. And just look at Biddy's nest at 4:30. It is starting to get pushed up the walls of the nest cup, as Mindy here must do a slight different sort of nesting shuffle to Biddy, as it really changes the look of her nest. So it's really interesting to see how that behaviour and the movement must differ from bird to bird to make a different sort of nest. And indeed, it wasn't till 7:30 or 7:45 that evening that Biddy decided to come in and back home. She brought in one feather, and I don't know if she really noticed the changes, but she does fix the changes throughout the night. She pulls the feather in towards her bit by bit throughout the night, and then by morning the nest seems to be in a lot better condition. But you can see on the 16th, as she went to sleep, the nest fairly looks damaged compared to how she left it that morning. And when we move forward to the following morning, we can see that the nest is somewhat recovered back to its former look. You can see she was doing that all night, pulling it in and making the nest cup her size again. But that's not the only interesting behaviour. Just look at this. This looks like egg laying behaviour to me. Now, we don't see an egg for another couple of days. With the position of this camera slightly tilted to the side, we don't get the straight down view than we did last year. So we don't actually spot an egg for, yes, another 2 days. But I believe there is an egg being laid right here and now, as I've only ever seen this heavy breathing to do with egg laying. And so we'll leave it there, and we will see you in the next episode. Mind yourselves, and we'll see you again. Bye bye.